Okay, so for keratometry problems, there's a few things you need to keep in mind. So we're doing number 15, and we're just doing the right eye for now. So I wrote it out. It's 42.12 at 175, 43.25 at 85. So the first thing we need to do is figure out which axis we're using. So in this case, we use the axis of the keratometry value that's lower. So 42.12 is lower than 43.25. So we're going to use axis 175 for our answer. There's a couple other ways you can write out keratometry values. So 42.12 slash 43.25 AM 175. AM stands for axis meridian. What that means is that this axis applies to the lower number between these two. So in this case, we know that axis 175 applies to 42.12. The other thing she can write is instead of axis meridian, she can use the at sign, and then in this case, whatever is written here applies to the number it's next to. So we know that the axis for 43.25 is 85. And to get the axis of 42.12, we just take this axis and we add or subtract 90. So if we add 90, we get 175. The next thing we want to do, since we know our final axis is going to be 175, we have to decide whether this is against the rule, with the rule, or oblique. So here are the ranges for with the rule, against the rule. So for with the rule, it's 180 plus or minus 30. Keep in mind that 180 and 0 are the same thing. So in this case, the range is 150 to 30. Against the rule is 90 plus or minus 30. That's a little bit easier. It's 60 to 120. And then oblique is just whatever falls outside of those ranges. So 31 to 119 and 61 to 149. In this case, 175 is within 30 of 180. So we know this is with the rule. That's more important for when you're figuring out spectacle sill. The first part of this question is asking what is the corneal sill. So the corneal sill is just what you get when you subtract the two keratometry values. So to get that, we subtract these two numbers. What you're supposed to do is take the smaller number and subtract the larger number to get a negative value. But that confuses me, so I'd rather just do the larger number minus the smaller number, and just keeping in mind that our final answers are always negative numbers when it comes to sill. So 43.25 minus 42.12 is 1.12, and it's a negative number, so negative 1.12. That's our corneal sill. Then it's saying what is our spectacle sill. So unless Dr. Nyman specifies, we're using modified Duvall's rule. This question is asking us to use Duvall's rule. So to go from corneal sill to spectacle sill, we're going to apply Duvall's rule. So Duvall's rule is 1.25 times the sill, which in this case, like, it doesn't really matter if you, actually it does matter. Let's keep it a negative number, 1.12. And let's ignore the axis for now. So the axis doesn't come into play with our math. So try to ignore it till you write your final answer. So 1.25 times minus 1.12, and then you're supposed to add or subtract minus 0.50, depending on whether it's with the rule, against the rule, or oblique. So doing all of that at once kind of confuses me. So what I would do is first 1.25 times minus 1.12. If we do that, we get minus 1.4. And now we decide whether we add or subtract minus 50. So if we go back to here, for with the rule, you're going to subtract minus 50. For against the rule, you're going to add minus 50. And for oblique, you skip Duvall's rule altogether. This also confuses me, so I try to keep it simple. All I know for with the rule is that the sill value is going to go down by 50. For against the rule, the sill value is going to go up by 50. And for oblique, we do nothing. So in this case, we know it's with the rule. So the sill value is going to go down by 50. So down by 50, and that equals minus 0.9. Okay, and then we're not done yet. We have to round. So corneal sill, spectacle sill, both of them can be rounded to eighths. When you come up with your final spectacle RX, that's when you have to round it by quarters. So just remember your eighths. It's 0.12, 0.25, 0.37, 0.5, 0.62, 0.75, 0.87, and then 1. in this case 0.9 is closer to 0.87 than it is to 1. So I'm going to round to 0.87, so our final answer would be minus 0.87. Axis stays the same, so x 175. The thing you need to remember is that if you're between two values, like exactly, like you can't round to the closest. So whenever you can, you round to the closest value. If you're exactly in between 2/8, you round towards the more plus direction. So you would round down. You would have round to the lower CIL value. Just keep that in mind. It's a very important rule, and she loves asking questions where you have to round at the end. And that's just for CIL. When we get to sphere rounding, you would round in the more minus direction. For CIL, we round in the more plus direction. For sphere, we round in the more minus direction. Okay. Since I want to be thorough, I want to do the same problem, but with modified Javals rule. So in the case of modified Javals rule, which is what we're using most of the time, you skip the multiplying by 1.25 and you just increase the CIL by 50, decrease the CIL by 50, or leave it the same. So in this case, remember, we're with the rule, so we're decreasing the CIL by 50. And so in this case, our CIL would be minus 0.62 x 175, which is conveniently already an eighth, so we don't have to round or anything. And then I just want to do two more examples. Ignore what's written up here. Let's say hypothetically this was axis 95. So again, let's say we're doing regular Javals rule. We would do 1.25 times minus 1.12, which equals minus 1.4. And in this case, since it's against the rule, we're going to go up by 50. So increase by minus 50. So then our answer would be 1.9, which I would round to minus 1.87. And so our answer would be minus 1.87 x 95. Okay, and then let's say hypothetically that the axis was something like axis 45. This is oblique. So when you have an oblique axis, the corneal CIL and the spectacle CIL are the same. So we'll just do nothing, and we'll leave it as minus 1.12, axis 45. Okay, so I'll leave you to do the left eye for the rest of number 15. We can do number 16. So in this case, it's, I'll do the right eye again. 40.50 at 175, 38.25 at 85. So in this case, we know the axis is 85 because the lower value is 38.25. So we know that's part of our corneal CIL. And then we subtract the two numbers. So 40.5 minus 38.25 is minus 2.25. So here's our corneal CIL. And then it's asking us to get the CIL at the spectacle plane using modified Javals. So this is against the rule. So all I know is that we have to increase the CIL by 50. So then our spec CIL will be minus 2.75, axis 85. Okay, and then for number 17, we have 45.75, 46.12 at 58. So this could potentially throw you off because we're given one axis, but it's applying to this number, the 46.12. But our axis is going to apply to this number right here because it's the lower number. So that's going to be 90 degrees away. So 90 plus 58 equals 148. So we know that the axis for our answer is going to be 148. So for our corneal CIL, it's axis 148. And now the difference between these two is 45.75 minus 46.12 is minus 0.37. Okay, and then 148 is in the oblique range. So the corneal CIL and the spectacle CIL are going to be the exact same. So spec is minus 0.37, axis 148.